I read a quote on your Instagram the other day, and it was, "The truth is, life doesn't give us meaning, we create it. If you don't step into what you're capable of, you'll live in a mental prison of your own making." And one of the hardest things for a lot of people, I think, is figuring out what are they capable of and what is meaningful to them. Because we don't create room in our lives, to figure that out and to ruminate on what do I find meaningful. So when you started journaling, what did you figure out about yourself? What did you start to find meaningful?
You look back on your past experiences and the challenges that you had, and these things happen in your life that you have no language for because it happens in a time period that you're young and you don't have the experience, you don't have the knowledge, you don't have the skills, you don't have the words to use to explain what's going on in your environment, the challenges that you're having, the struggles that you're facing, what's going on internally. And so what that gave to me by doing all of those things, the meaning that I was able to get from that is taking the language and the skills that I have today by reading all the books that are behind you and countless others and listening to all these different podcasts, is you begin to discover parts of who you really are. And you begin to acknowledge that, okay, well, there was difficulty there, and I can name this now. And if I can name it, they say name it to tame it, right? So
Yeah.
now I can name this, and now I have an understanding about where I came from and who I've been and the struggles that I've gone through and what that means to me. It no longer has to take anything away from me. I can now allow that to rest, to be put back into the past, and for that to live there. I don't have to continue to ruminate on those experiences, and I can allow myself to begin to visualize, well, what is the future version of me? What do I look like? What is he doing? What challenges does he face? What's going on? What life has he created for himself? And I can set that target way into the future and then keep myself grounded in the present with a good sight picture of that target, and allow myself to work now consistently over long periods of time to get the results that I'm looking for, which is that dream that's still in the future. And so for anybody who's a little bit older like myself, and you found yourself in different jobs, different roles, different positions, you're what they call a multi-potentialite. You like getting yourself into all different types of things. You have several interests. It's okay. There is no timeline to anything. You fall into these things when you're supposed to, when you have the capacity and the skill, the knowledge, the desire, and the curiosity to do these things. You fall into it and you begin to create your life from there. So what it gave to me was a new opportunity to have yet another chapter in my life that I'm starting to question. And I'm sure you've seen the stuff. Who am I capable of becoming? Because as I've done all these other things, well, now I'm doing this, and how expansive can what I'm doing right now actually be?
Yeah, you never know until you try, right?
Exactly.
You can think of all these things and they're just in your head, but when you actually put pen to paper, you start to work, you start to realize, man, there are limitless potential. There's so much potential to what I'm trying to do.
Yep.
And that brings me back to another thing that I've heard you talk about, and I made a solo episode on it a few weeks ago, and it's the idea that knowledge is not really power. It's the action that you take on that, right? Because like you just said there, it's when you learn stuff, it's hard to, like, that's not enough. You started doing, and now after you've been doing for a little while, you're thinking, wow, where can I actually take this? But
Yeah.
that's a hard transformation to get from point A to point B of, I'm learning this information, I'm doing it, wow, how far can I go? So how do we try to help people go from this point of just trying to get information in this cycle of just learning but not actually applying to actually taking the action?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things that I had to accept for myself is that I don't know what I don't know. And I really had to sit and think on that, especially again, when you're creating something new, when you dive into the social media world, you start creating content, you want to build a podcast. Like, none of these things were on my bingo card for my life. There wasn't a point where I was like, man, I really want to do that. I had career paths before this that were interesting, that were fun, that I enjoyed. And there's been multiple pivots, and I'm in the process now of creating a series called The Power of the Pivot. And life is filled with those, where we have to take an inventory of where we are, the skills that we have, what we're capable of doing, which is always evolving, right? Because if you're capable of one thing now, but you get a coach, or you find information, or you listen to Alex Hormozy, or you get online and you dive into all this content, well, now you're growing, you're developing, you're evolving, you're changing. And then, of course, what you're able to create from there becomes more expansive, because now you've honed your skill set. Now you're more capable. Now you feel competent and confident in who you are. You start showing up differently. And as you start showing up differently, we call that raising your frequency or raising your vibration. You begin to peer over that wall of limitation that's been in front of you this whole time, because you couldn't see beyond it. Because right now you're in this moment where you might be struggling, you're having a hard time, you don't know what you don't know, you don't have enough information, you don't have enough inputs to be able to determine, well, how can I get way over there when I'm here? That's impossible. And we tell ourselves, well, I can't do that, because that's a core belief that many of us carry with us. And thanks to the people that we hang out with, and no shade to them, we love them dearly, but they'll tell you, why are you doing this? This is so silly. You're not going to make it. And they don't say that out of malice or to try and hurt you. They're just trying to protect you, because they don't want you to get hurt through that process, or disappointed, or to be made a fool of. But when you believe in yourself, and you bet on yourself, and you start doing these things, like I said, consistently over long periods of time, you're going to get a result. Might not necessarily be the result that you want, that ideal that you're looking for. But like I said, as long as you're always learning and growing, you'll evolve to the person that you want to be.
You just finished watching a clip of the Grateful Podcast episode with Jason Smith, host of the Blueprint Podcast. If you enjoyed this, I guarantee that you will love the full episode right here. Why haven't you clicked it yet? Come on. It's right there. You're going to love it.